It's Friday night. Your phone lights up on the kitchen counter while you're standing there in old sweatpants stirring instant noodles. We're all going out. You coming? The group chat is exploding. Memes, inside jokes, someone already calling a ride. You glance at the clock. You could shower. You could change. You could step into the noise, the music, the bright lights.
Instead, you look over at your couch. The blanket is folded just the way you like it. Your show is paused mid-episode. There's a strange, quiet pull in your chest. Not fear exactly, not laziness either, just relief at the idea of staying right here. You type, "I'm gonna sit this one out. Have fun though."
And as soon as you hit send, you feel it. That warm exhale, that subtle guilt, that whisper in the back of your mind asking, is something wrong with me? Today, we're talking about people who secretly love staying home, the ones who feel most alive in quiet rooms, who cancel plans and feel lighter, who choose comfort over crowd. On the surface, it looks like antisocial behavior, maybe even avoidance. But beneath that, there's often a hidden psychological advantage most people completely miss.
Let me show you. Picture another scene. Sunday afternoon. Your neighbor is hosting a barbecue. Laughter spills over the fence. Music plays. You're inside by the window with a cup of tea, reading something that makes you pause and think. Every now and then you hear a burst of noise from outside, and for a split second you wonder if you're supposed to be out there. But then you look back at the page. You feel calm, focused, grounded. What if that feeling isn't a weakness?
One of the first things we have to untangle is the confusion between introversion and social anxiety. Introversion, as originally described by Carl Jung, isn't about disliking people. It's about where your energy flows. Extroverts tend to gain energy from external stimulation, conversations, movement, novelty.
If you love staying home, your brain may simply be more sensitive to dopamine spikes. Social events are high dopamine environments. New faces, unpredictable conversations, music, status signals. For some people, that's exhilarating. For others, it's like drinking 5 espressos when you only needed half a cup. Your system gets overloaded.
Have you ever left a crowded event and felt not just tired, but almost scrambled? Like your thoughts are scattered and your body needs silence to reset. That's not weakness, that's sensitivity. And sensitivity, psychologically speaking, is often linked to deeper processing. There's a concept called high sensory processing sensitivity. It describes people whose brains process information more deeply and thoroughly. They notice subtleties, tone shifts in someone's voice, the way lighting changes a room's mood, the emotional undercurrent in a conversation. When you stay home, you're not necessarily withdrawing from life. You might be protecting your cognitive bandwidth. Let's look at a different moment. It's a Wednesday evening after work. Your colleagues invite you to drinks. You imagine the small talk. So what are you up to this weekend? Can you believe the boss said that? Instead, you go home. You cook something simple. You sit with your thoughts. Maybe you journal. Maybe you tinker with an idea that's been floating in your mind for weeks. This is where the hidden advantage starts to show.
There's a psychological concept called self-reflection that's strongly linked to long-term growth. Research suggests that people who regularly spend time alone, not scrolling but actually thinking, tend to develop clearer self-concepts. In simple terms, they know who they are. They've heard their own thoughts without the constant noise of others' opinions. When you're always out, always reacting, always responding, your identity can subtly shape itself around the room. But when you're home alone, there's no audience, no performance, just you.
And that quiet, it's like a mirror. Think about it. When was the last time you had a realization about your life in the middle of a loud party? It usually happens in the quiet moments, in the shower, on a late-night walk, on the couch with the lights dim. People who love staying home often build a strong internal world, and that internal world can become a strategic advantage. They think through decisions more carefully. They replay conversations and extract lessons. They notice patterns in their own behavior. Now, of course, this can flip into overthinking. And yes, staying home can become avoidance if it's driven by fear. But here's the key difference.
Avoidance feels tight. It feels anxious. Loving your space feels expansive. It feels safe. Let me give you another micro scene. A friend texts you, frustrated about her relationship. She says, "I don't even know what I feel anymore." You listen, really listen. Because you've spent so much time sitting with your own emotions, you can recognize hers. You can name them. "It sounds like you're not just angry," you say. "You're disappointed."
She goes quiet. "Yeah," she says, "that's exactly it." This is another hidden advantage, emotional granularity. Studies show that people who can precisely label their emotions cope better with stress. They don't just feel bad, they feel irritated, overlooked, restless, lonely, and that precision gives them power. Staying home creates space for that vocabulary to develop.
There's also something called social comparison theory. When you're constantly around others, especially in high-performance social circles, your brain automatically compares. Who's more successful? Who's more attractive? Who is more interesting? It's not a character flaw, it's just how we're wired. But when you spend intentional time alone, you temporarily step out of that comparison loop. Your nervous system isn't constantly measuring your worth against the room. Over time, this can build a quieter, more stable sense of self-esteem, one less dependent on applause.
Imagine two people. One is always out, always visible, always in motion. The other has a rich private life, projects, thoughts, hobbies, inner dialogues. On the surface, the first person might seem more alive, but the second person often develops depth, and depth compounds. Think of it like roots. The tree that grows tallest above ground usually has an equally intricate system below. Loving your alone time is like growing roots. No one sees it, it doesn't look impressive on Instagram, but it stabilizes you.
Now, here's where it gets interesting socially. If you're the one who often declines invitations, people might label you as distant, and that can create a loop. They invite you less, you feel slightly misunderstood, you retreat further. Behavior creates reaction. Reaction reinforces behavior.
But when you understand your own wiring, you can break that loop intentionally. Instead of disappearing entirely, you choose selectively. You show up fully when it matters. And because you're not constantly drained, when you do show up, you're present, attentive, engaged. There's a quiet intensity to someone who doesn't spread themselves thin. Another scene.
You're on a solo evening walk. Streetlights hum softly. The air is cool. You're replaying a conversation from earlier, realizing something about your own patterns. Maybe you always say yes too quickly. Maybe you avoid conflict. Maybe you shrink in certain rooms. That awareness, that's psychological leverage.
There's a concept in neuroscience called default mode network. It activates when you're not focused on external tasks, when your mind wanders, reflects, connects dots. This network is linked to creativity and autobiographical memory. In other words, when you're home, doing nothing, your brain might actually be reorganizing your life story. That's not laziness. That's integration. And here's the philosophical undertone we rarely talk about. Modern culture worships visibility. We equate busy with important, social with successful, outgoing with confident. But history is full of people who built empires of thought in quiet rooms. Writers, scientists, philosophers. They weren't always at the party. They were at the desk, at the window, in the silence. So if you secretly love staying home, maybe you're not missing out. Maybe you're marinating. Of course, balance matters. Humans are social creatures. Isolation can turn into loneliness if it's unintentional or prolonged. But there's a difference between loneliness and chosen solitude. Loneliness feels like hunger. Solitude feels like nourishment. Think back to that Friday night scene in the kitchen, the phone buzzing, the blanket waiting, the exhale after you sent that message. The deeper psychological pattern here is simple. You may have built a strong internal home, not just a physical one. And that changes everything. When your sense of safety doesn't depend entirely on external stimulation, you become less reactive. You don't chase every invitation for validation. You don't panic at the thought of being alone. You can sit with yourself. And in a world that constantly distracts, that ability is rare. So maybe the question isn't, why don't I want to go out more? Maybe it's, what am I building in this quiet space?
Are you nurturing ideas, healing old wounds, understanding your own emotional patterns, or are you hiding from something that needs gentle confrontation? There's no shame in either, just curiosity. Next time you choose the couch over the crowd, notice the feeling in your body. Is it relief? Is it fear? Is it peace? That subtle difference tells you everything. Are you nurturing ideas, healing old wounds, understanding your own emotional patterns, or are you hiding from something that needs gentle confrontation? There's no shame in either, just curiosity. Next time you choose the couch over the crowd, notice the feeling in your body. Is it relief? Is it fear? Is it peace? That subtle difference tells you everything.
Because at the end of the day, it's not about choosing couch or crowd. It's about knowing why you choose what you choose. And when you understand that, you're no longer just staying home. You're coming home to yourself.